Hey everyone, welcome again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talks. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. Good day, Matt. Time to get back into the show.
I know, yeah, lots to go over today.
Absolutely. Well, let's start off first with the hot New Jersey Devils.
Mhm.
Starting the season 4-0, they're playing Colorado tonight. Riding on the coattails of hot goaltender Keith Kincaid. Does this start a goaltending controversy in New Jersey? And what about the hot start of Kyle Palmieri?
Yeah, well, I think there could be a goalie controversy. I think Schneider's been bumped up to day, so he's very close to returning to the lineup. But Keith Kincaid back-to-back shutouts for New Jersey. I think he's at like a 960 save percentage in 4 games. Just playing unbelievable in net. And with Kyle Palmieri, 7 goals in 4 games. I believe that's a New Jersey record to start the season, at least for scoring the opening goal in each game as well for the
Wow.
Devils. So, and I believe right now he has the highest goals per game right now. With Matthews not getting any last game, Palmieri got bumped up to the best goals per game in the NHL right now.
Well, and it's weird because they've played so few games compared to other teams, and their schedule looks fairly favorable. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep it going. If they can make it 5, 6, 7-0 and stay undefeated, it'll be. I'm curious to see. Uh, as we transition over to another team, our local team, the Vancouver Canucks, we have to talk about them because they've now won 3 in a row. No Pedersen, no problem. Now that the Flow put one in overtime. But let's talk about the goaltending they're getting from Anders Nelson.
Yeah, Nielsen's been great in that. Like, I think outside of the first goal that he let in against Pittsburgh, which I didn't like, all the goals he's let in, I haven't had a problem with outside of that one. He's been very consistent in net. I think the biggest thing with working with his goalie coach is he's not running around as much, and he just looks actually like bigger in net. I think last year he was like slouching a little bit more, leaning a little bit more forward, but now he just seems a little bit more relaxed and he's using a 6'6" frame a lot more better than last year. And I think the best thing that he brought up as a goalie, I like this quote. As a goalie, it's like you're playing your best when you're not thinking out on the ice; you're just reacting. I think that's huge. It's like once when you start overthinking the play, then you get yourself in trouble. Is if you're just letting the puck come to you, you're just reading the play and reacting. That's when you're at your best. And he's starting again tonight in Winnipeg. And I think you just keep riding him until he starts to falter. And that gives, and I think having a lot of time with Ian Clark in practice and not starting has given him a lot more time to work on all the things Clark's wanted to change in his game this year. So maybe once when he does falter and Markstrom comes back in net, maybe we could see an improvement from him. But the biggest thing is not letting in that weak first goal and letting the team's confidence go down. And the defense in front of him is actually starting to play a lot more better than last year, even though it is the same group and there's still question marks. But right now, the defense in front of him is playing pretty well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can continue the winning streak against the Winnipeg Jets tonight. And your favorite player on the Canucks, Michael Del Zotto, will continue to be a healthy scratch. That defense, you brought it up. I was going to mention it to you. Guys like Alex Edler leading the league in block shots. Edler and Chris Tanev getting a ton of ice time. I think they have definitely helped the goaltending situation. And you mentioned it was a weak goal against Pittsburgh the other night, but it still was a 2-on-1 with a really good goal scorer getting the goal. So you could fault them if you want. It was somewhat weaker, but to me, it made up for the 3 or 4 shots that should have went in that he made the save on, especially in the second period against Pittsburgh there. And, of course, against Sidney Crosby, who had a couple of really good tips and chances on him. Next team, Montreal Canadiens, off to a great start as well, 4-1-1. Do you think subtraction by addition has helped them out? In other words, they've now moved Max Pacioretty and Alex Galchenyuk And by moving those guys, it's forced other players to step up. What do you like in Montreal so far? And man, when Shea Weber comes back in December, this team, if they're still in a position like they are now, we might be seeing them making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the best thing with the Habs roster is that sort of like in Vancouver here is that Claude Julien's just playing the best players that are playing the best hockey at that time. Like we've seen Carl Alsner finally got in his first game last night. He'd been a healthy scratch to start the season. So the young guys have been really stepping up. That top line of Thomas Tatar, Brendan Gallagher, and I believe Max Domi might have gotten bumped back up to that top line. Has been really good for them, especially Gallagher scoring the game winner with less than 10 seconds on the clock last night. But yeah, I think their team speed, I think, has been talked about a lot. But yeah, their young guys are producing. Jonathan Drouin's starting to get back on his game after a really slow start to start the season. But yeah, I think it's just believing in their young guys and letting them play. And right now they're rewarding them with their efforts. And Carey Price has continued to look really good in net after last season's debacle for him.
When did Jonathan Drouin's hair get so long? It's some pretty nasty hockey hair right now. Of course, those are the three of the teams I wanted to talk about today. Of course, the other teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs are still hot. The Anaheim Ducks are surprisingly still hot. And some of the other teams that we mentioned the other day have kind of taken a step backwards. Boston's lost one now. They're now 4-2. And San Jose is 2-3-1. So some of those records are a little surprising to me anyways. Sidney Crosby talked about Connor McDavid being the number one player in the NHL. McDavid versus Crosby, I don't know where this discussion came from, but if you were to have one of those players, Game 7, winner takes all, who are you taking?
Well, right now I go with Sidney Crosby. He's Mr. Clutch right now. It's like you could go with either guy. It's like you wouldn't have a problem. But yeah, I want the guy that's been there before. He's won 3 Stanley Cups. He scored the game-winning gold medal goal in 2010. Yeah, he's won everywhere he's played with in every tournament. So and I still think he is depending on where you want to go, I think he is the best hockey player in the NHL. His hand-eye is crazy good. I think watching him against the Canucks, he had another couple really nice deflections where the puck was going completely wide, and then he had to make Nielsen work to make a save there. But yeah, I think it doesn't even come close between Crosby and McDavid right now. So Crosby's my pick.
Mike Babcock saying that Sidney Crosby would be his pick as well. For me, I would also take Sidney Crosby just because of his defensive play, I believe, is better than McDavid. But outside of those two guys, if you had a choice of any forward in the NHL for that important Game 7, who would you take?
Ooh. Well, just with my favorite hockey player is Alexander Ovechkin. And it was really nice last year seeing him come up clutch for the Capitals throughout the playoffs. But yeah, he's one of those guys up there that I would choose.
And Andrew Walker from Sportsnet saying he would take Evgeny Malkin. For me, I would have taken Patrice Bergeron only, again, because he's good both ends of the ice and could be clutch if you do have that lead when it comes to faceoffs in your own zones. Anybody else come to mind that you want to throw in there before we move on?
Let's see here.
It's a tough question.
I know, yeah. It's just like you're trying to look off experience, because like if Chicago does get back in the playoffs, I know like his regular season numbers haven't been the greatest of late, but Jonathan Toews,
that's the other guy they mentioned as well.
Yeah. I'd throw him in there, and then for Nashville, I think Philippe Forsberg. I know his resume isn't big, but the last couple of years in the playoffs, it's just like this guy shows up and produces. So it's like I know he doesn't have the resume, but I think maybe in a couple of years, if Nashville, depending on between them and Winnipeg, who comes out of that, because like Mark Scheifele, if he builds off last year's playoffs game, like the 14 goals or whatever in the first 3 rounds, that's another guy that you could throw in that could be really clutch. But it's just a lot of these guys that are like superstars, like Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid. Like they don't have enough playoff experience yet to really build off of. It's just like it's like you could choose them or whatever, but you want to see them actually do it regularly every year.
All sorts of records being broken to start this season off. Why don't you bring us through the list of those and catch everyone up to date?
Yes. So Austin Matthews, through the first 7 games, all were multi-point games. So he joins Kevin Stevens from Pittsburgh in 92-93, Mike Bossy in 84-85, and some guy named Wayne Gretzky in 83-84 to start the season with 7 consecutive multi-point games, which is pretty crazy with some of those names mentioning in Wayne Gretzky right there. Also in Ottawa, Maxime Lahoy had 7 points in 6 games to start the year, which is the best start by an Ottawa defenseman in franchise history. So better than Erik Karlsson and all those guys. So and especially from a guy who's only scored 1 goal in 50-something games in the American Hockey League last year. He already has 4 to start the year in the NHL. Along with Connor McDavid setting the NHL record, factoring in on the first 9 goals by the Edmonton Oilers to start the season. He's been on every goal except for the OT winner against Winnipeg last game. So that beats Adam Oates' record of 7 straight goals to start the season, 86-87. And lastly, Nathan MacKinnon set an Avalanche and Quebec Nordiques franchise record for scoring in the first six games to start the season. So he's up to 7 in 6 games, I believe, right now. And that top line with Landeskog, Rantanen, and McKinnon continues to rock and roll for them.
Well, here's a fun fact for you. What team was Adam Oates on when he set that record?
Oh, don't worry. I made sure to write that down. The Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, exactly. That was before he got traded to the St. Louis Blues or the Boston Bruins. So Nick Ritchie signs today finally in Anaheim after holding out the first 6 games of the season. Fill us in on that, and then we understand William Nylander, not Alex. William Nylander's starting to talk with Toronto over in Europe. How is that going, and where does that leave Kasperi Kapanen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Anaheim Ducks signed Nick Ritchie to a 3-year extension worth a total of $4.6 million. So that's a cap hit of $1.63 million. And as I brought up in previous episodes, even earlier before the season, it's like I didn't understand why Nick Ritchie was unsigned, especially once when you come out and see that his cap hit's only $1.63 million. It's just like he didn't have anything to back up his play with to get a whole lot of money. So it was just really strange that he had to wait the first couple of weeks to sign the contract. Along with Anaheim, they also signed defenseman Jake Dotchin to a 1-year $800K deal. I think earlier Tampa Bay put him on waivers to terminate his contract because of weight issues. So he gets the 1-year deal there as well in Anaheim. And yeah, the William Nylander situation, Kyle Dubas flew out to Switzerland to meet with him. I think numbers were exchanged, but it's sort of a wait and see. I see Nylander skating with a team in Austria right now, but I think he has to sign before the new year. Otherwise, he won't be able to play in the NHL this year. But with that, Kasperi Kapanen, who's been promoted to that line with Austin Matthews, has really been producing. I believe he has about 2 or 3 goals and 6-7 points since getting promoted to Matthews' line. So if he continues that play around the 60-point pace, that's what Nylander's had the past couple of years, playing along with Matthews. And if you can get him at a better cap hit when his contract does come up, do you think Nylander would get traded to help out their back end, to help out guys like Morgan Rielly and Jake Gardiner, especially defensively. So it's something that you got to keep an eye on. But then again, the other argument is if you can have Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and Kasperi Kapanen as your three right wingers, and you're able to work that all under the salary cap, then there's no need to make that trade. But I think this all comes to how the Leafs are gonna move up with their defense this year.
And of course, Coach Bob Hartley, who's coaching in the KHL, adding fuel to the fire, saying he would, with open arms, have William Nylander come play for his team in the K. And a good friend of mine, actually a huge diehard Leafs fan, just would love to ship William Nylander off to Carolina for a player like Justin Falk, where Carolina, and it actually made sense to me since Carolina has absolute depth of the young defensemen coming up, and it would add some more scoring to the Carolina team. But we'll see where that goes. It's easier said than done, of course. A few major injuries to talk about. First off, rookie out of Ottawa. When it rains, it pours for Ottawa. Brady Tkachuk now is injured for at least a month. I don't know if we talked about these two players last episode, but Justin Schultz gone for about 4 to 6 months, and Paul Stastny out for at least 1 to 2 months. Why don't you fill us in on that and some of the other injuries from around the league?
Yeah, so Brady Tkachuk's out 1 month with a torn ligament in his knee. Apparently, he suffered it in the last game that he played against, but he still came back and finished the game. But he's been off to a hot start with 3 goals, 6 points in 4 games. So that's a huge loss, especially with guys like Alex Formenton. I believe Ryan Dzingle's back from injury. I believe he just got activated off injured reserve. But Cody Cece's also injured. And then including on their farm team, apparently Logan Brown and Philippe Chaplik are all injured along with the other slew of guys. So it's not just the NHL team, it's also their American Hockey League team. So when these guys go down, their options aren't really good for who they'd want to bring up right now. Also for injuries, Corey Crawford, who we speculate could be back today. It got confirmed that he will be starting tonight, so that is huge for the Chicago Blackhawks because it's just about been 1 year since Corey Crawford's been back in the net for the Chicago Blackhawks. Along with some other good goalie news, Jonathan Quick, after missing 5 games, will be back in net. And Matt Murray, who suffered that concussion, will be starting tonight against the Leafs after backing up Casey DeSmith the past couple games. Believe that's it for injuries. Dylan Dubé missed last game with a lower body injury, and Dustin Byfuglien will be back in the lineup for the Winnipeg Jets tonight against the Canucks after missing 2 games with an upper body injury. And
no further news on Johnny Gaudreau's situation in Calgary from hit he received last night against the Boston Bruins. So to wrap today's show up, what final word, Matt?
I was in a joke. Maybe if he weighed a little more, he wouldn't have fallen.
Actually, 27 players in the NHL weigh less than Elias Pettersson. For those of you that say Pettersson doesn't weigh too much. By the way, on that note, Mike Matheson apologizing, saying, talking to the NHL players' safety, he's very aware of basically how they said there was 2 plays involved in that hit and what was legal and what was not legal. So I think it's very good that they're communicating to the players like that. And it'll be interesting to see how many more of those that the NHL hands out this year. And, of course, Tom Wilson meeting with Gary Bettman later today on his suspension. So final words to you, Matt.
All right. Yeah, so I'll try to have highlights up this weekend. I'll be pretty busy on the Saturday. I believe there's 13 games this Saturday night. So it'll be really big. It'll be interesting to see if a couple teams get their first wins. The Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings are the only winless teams to start this year. And also another key note, the LA Kings are the only team in the NHL not to score a power play goal yet. this season. So it is interesting with guys like Kovalchuk, Kopitar, and Doughty, how those guys haven't been able to put the puck in the net on the power play. But yeah, follow us on Facebook for all those highlights. But yeah, I believe we might have a show tomorrow. I believe just a preview into the weekend and all of today's games.
Yeah, so remember to like and share us on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Let people know about us. We absolutely love having you guys as fans. This has been B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host Matt Balzer. We'll be back tomorrow, like Matt said, for another episode. So you guys have a fantastic evening. Enjoy tonight's games, and we'll all talk to you tomorrow.